And you're live.
Woo, we're live. Welcome to RAGIN episode 14 with Terry Mayo and Dave Swartz. Hold on a second. We'll be right back after this intro.
RAGIN.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sure you missed us, but I'm going to drop the card here because we have special guests tonight. We have Terry Mayo and Dave Swartz. This is episode 14 of RAGIN. Oh, hey, you guys. You know what?
Hey.
We're going to put you in the seats of honor here. We're going to put you up there.
Look at that.
Fancy, right?
I feel special.
Now, you guys have a campaign that is kicking ass right now, Buddy number 1. And it is Milo and Otis meets the Exorcist.
Right.
Now, I love a good horror. How much horror are we looking at here?
I mean, as much horror as is legally allowed to show in an all ages type book. But no, I mean, we didn't pull any punches. I don't feel like with the horror. It's not like it was on the forefront to be like, oh no, that's too far. But at the same time, trying to find that balance, because I mean, if you've seen the art, it's kind of got that fun vibe, right, Dave?
Yeah.
It's got that Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon type vibe, so that when that horror hits, it hits hard.
And I was just telling Dave before we went live, it's like with the red light and everything, I'm like, oh, you got the scene going there. You got the demon thing going, kind of scary. I want to hear, when I sit with people, I want to hear the creative journey. Like what got you here? And then we'll kind of get into like how you two got together to work on this. But Terry, where did this come from? Where did this love of comic books come from? And when did you decide this is something that I want to do?
Something I wanted to devote all my time to.
Yeah.
Well, my mom bought me a book or a box of books from a garage sale, and it had like 70s comics in it, Jonah Hex and like Sergeant Rocks, that kind of stuff. So I remember I was in my room playing with G.I. Joes, and they were versus Star Wars, and they were going at it. And then she brought in this box, and she was like, "You need to read more." So I started going through it, and that's when like the love started, which is like going through these worlds that you don't see on TV, you know. And I remember Swamp Thing was a thing back then, but I never really associated it with comic books until running across it in that box. And I was like, "Holy crap! They make movies out of this stuff." So it was that was the initial bug. And then fast forward a few years, I moved out to Hollywood to be a famous writer, and I sold a few things, sold a few screenplays, but nothing ever got made. And it was just kind of one of those things. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed selling them a lot. But it wasn't like a passion. It wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But comics has always been a thing. Reading comics, enjoying comics, being a nerd about comics. So it seemed like a natural progression to start writing them. So I can't draw worth crap. Ask Dave. He's seen some of my requests. And so
you have like the stick figures and stuff like that, and say, Dave, make magic from this.
That's good reference material, Meredith. Don't knock it.
Right. Thank you. I always make sure and draw an arrow and say, this is a van, not a building. This is a car. Don't go crazy with this. But yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing like that first feeling of getting something that you wrote back, sending it to someone who's super talented to draw, then getting that back and just seeing it like come alive. Because that's an addictive feeling for me, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I've got, maybe it's a problem.
Yeah. Dave, how about you? I mean, was the art thing always the thing? I mean, is there a plan B? Was there ever a plan B?
I think for me, plan B was Rockstar.
Oh yeah, me too. But that didn't happen.
Didn't quite pan out. So, I decided I needed to get some kind of job. So I should probably go after something I love. And art was kind of my thing. So, I went to college for illustration. I began trying to become a comic book artist, but every single year changed trajectories. And I went around the block, did a bunch of different jobs in the creative, field. But I eventually found myself back at square one with comics. A couple years now that I've been back at it. I think about 6 or 7 years that I've been doing comics more full time. Got a couple of different books of my own under my belt, as well as other projects that I've done with other writers such as Terry. But honestly, I've always really enjoyed working with Terry. Terry and I have worked on some projects before, and it's just been a really great relationship. I write myself, so I understand what it's like being a writer and, shoveling it off to someone else to create. My previous work, Feast or Famine, I had another artist work with me on it, Joseph Cooper, who was just, worked for DC, Marvel, Image, all the big ones. And he's a master at what he does. And so in a way, it was like a second education for me. So it's a fun way of being on both sides of, the comic book creation process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this past year, I really dove in, myself in writing and scripting. And this lady here, because I do prose. Well, I used to do prose. Now I'm ruined for prose because scripts. But she would sit there and she would say, too many words. She's like, you don't need it. Cut it. And, and I'm sitting there going, if I had done this 10 or 15 years ago, I don't think I would have had the patience for that. It's hard. It is really hard. Can you speak about that? Have there been times when you were like, screw this? This is like not easy.
I mean, for me, there's always times where I'm like, this is not easy. But but at the same time, I don't think I've ever been to that point of like, screw this. Because I think kind of like what we're talking about this is too many words, it's too many words. Getting in that routine and when that light bulb goes off of like, oh, you know what? The saying about less is more, that nothing says that more than when you're making comics and trying to fit
right
functional story on a page and a panel and a bubble and still have it make sense. And that's where that collaboration with an amazing artist comes in to like to expound upon what you're writing and make it seem like like it is prose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave, did you ever have those moments with especially with comic books? I mean, illustration. There's so much work for illustration in various types and things like that. But comic books, to understand sequential art and everything like that, what was there ever a time where you were like, why am I doing this?
I think from time to time, I have thought, well, I could just be doing something else. Like I could create, like I was a creative director before I did any of this. I was doing marketing, so I could do lots of different things. But I inevitably always come back to comics because I just love the way that we can tell a story visually through this medium that isn't quite done in any other way. I think even film to a certain degree is never quite going to capture the same experience that you have, enjoying a story sequentially, right? So for me as an artist, I've always kind of had that writer mind. And so kind of having a place where I can take both and have, both kind of play around on a playground together is just a natural kind of thing for me. It's always kind of been natural in that way. Actually, I've been teaching, on the side from time to time when I have the opportunity. And one of the classes I teach for kids is comic book creation or graphic novels.
Oh, nice.
When I teach these types of concepts, it's like a reminder of myself of, okay, even though this may be natural for me, it's not natural for everyone. So I have to kind of break that down step by step and remind myself, okay, this is why I do what I do and why it's so important, and it's actually another reminder of myself of why I do all the things that I do and why I think about all the things I think about.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to, if you guys don't mind talking about it a little bit, finding each other, or as a writer, finding that artist.
It's a love story.
And the other way, we want the love story, but also that journey of like how many frogs did you have to kiss before you found the prince, that type of thing. Because let me tell you, I've been in a couple of groups, and I said, hey, I have a story looking for an artist, and just the mock, being mocked and just like, what's your budget and stuff like that. It's just like, I'm asking one question here, like where do I start? So what is this love story here? How did you guys meet up? And how do you communicate with each other?
Well, we locked eyes across the room in a crowded bar.
It all started with a hello.
He had me at hellos. Well, Dave and I, we used to be under the same umbrella for a publisher for a little bit, and he had his own book, Feast or Famine. But I had seen previous work of his. It was the Atlas book, right?
Yep,
Dave?
Atlas Origins.
And the art and just seeing. So at one point I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I'm going to be doing these short stories for the Wicked Righteous, and I dig your work. I'm paraphrasing maybe, but would you like to join me on this? And so we did. And the cool thing about us, I'm hoping, is that we've always kind of just blended well. That we've always kind of been on the same page. Even when we have different ideas, it's so easy just to kind of come together and be like, oh yeah, well, this obviously works better. So we met through the short stories, worked together. It was a beautiful relationship. And then, when Buddy came around, I couldn't think of anybody else but Dave and his art style to represent kind of that feel that I was wanting to go for. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Dave is the superstar of this book because the book shines. I mean, it's beautiful art.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
As far as like frogs and stuff like that, I mean, I'm sorry, Dave, I haven't been faithful because I have reached out to other artists here and there. But my what I do and what I've kind of found helpful, because at first when you don't have a property out or you haven't been published before, you don't really, especially as a writer, it feels lonely sometimes out there trying to be like, hey, I would like to make something.
And I don't art.
Yeah, and I don't art. I don't know what I'm doing. But I started off the last couple years reaching out for short stories. So like, hey, I got this 3-page story. I got this 5-page story. That way it's kind of like it's a speed dating thing. If you want to stay in the same theme where you have these 3 pages, 5 pages, and if it works out well, then maybe we'll go on a second date, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do at least.
Dave, what about you? Because I think, again, because I don't have the artist's brain, so it's really hard for me to wrap my head around it. But when it comes to the creative process, certain styles and things like that, are there stories that have come across your desk where you're like, I'd love to, but I can't?
Yeah, I think plenty of times I've had lots of offers for concepts that I either really enjoyed, but I just didn't have time in my schedule, or projects where I love the concept, but I would love to be able to like work with them to make it that much better. You know what I mean? Like, because I have a writer mind as well, every project that I'm approached with, I also look at it through that lens. And if I see opportunities to make the story better or to make an aspect of the story better, I'm not going to be quiet about it. I'm going to, voice my opinion because I want every project that I work on to be the best that it can be. I worked with another fellow Alterna creator on another concept for a project. And, he came at me with a series of characters and ideas and the story. And I came back at him with the same stuff, but elevated, where I had taken concepts and just ran with it. And I sent it back, and he just said, okay, wait, I need a couple months to like wrap my brain around this because you just took it to another place. Figure out.
Oh, my dude.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, there is a synergy there that sometimes you have to recognize and be okay and open to, you know, because there's the other side of the equation where you see a project that you might want to work on, you come at that with some of your own ideas, but the writer's like, no, like this is my baby, you ain't putting your own like little 2 cents on it, you know. And I've had that happen once or twice. But honestly, for me, it's pretty easy. You know, if you're not open to making your story better, then I don't necessarily want to get in bed with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
And for lack of a better term, you know, I like being in bed with Terry. It's you know, it's a good place to be.
Well, I do have 8 kids. I do know what I'm talking about.
Well, we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to pull up your Kickstarter because you guys are kicking butt right now.
Nailing it.
Yeah, if you got to take a sip of something, I'll be right back after this. That's right, you guys. We've got a launch party coming over here on RAGIN on June 11th at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. Make sure that you head over to Indiegogo and sign up for the launch. And when we are doing the launch party, that little sketch there with the little dudes snorkeling, well, that's going to be available. And we also want to give a little love to Indie Vault. Use coupon code VOLT10 for a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers. And right now we are sitting with Terry Mayo and Dave Swartz. Swartz? Swartz. It's Swartz.
You
I
nailed
know.
it. What's the H?
Oh, Peter Swartz be with you. No, I'm good.
Wow.
I did
All right.
that. I know you've heard that in your entire life,
Never
right?
heard that one.
Never heard it. I know.
Never, not once. You're
And-
so
and-
original, Meredith.
And Dave's never coming on our show again.
Thanks for ruining it.
I ruined it. Speaking of ruining things, no, we want more. We want more. We want backers for Buddy. You guys, again, 332 backers. Is this a goal or is there more?
I don't even know what to say, honestly. I mean,
That is incredible.
if we reach 9,000, I will say this because you know, in these last couple days, this is when you see like the people that maybe drop out or the people that for whatever reason they lower their whatever. So that it's that balance of gaining, losing. So if we get to 9,000, stay over 9,000, then we have one more stretch goal that we're putting out, which is actually the original art piece for the Bad Boy Buddy pinup was done by my man Dave Swartz, and that's available in the add-on section. But every physical backer will get a print of it if we hit 9,000.
Nice.
But yeah, and the backer total is just I'm blown away a little bit. I mean, I ran one Kickstarter before about 3 years ago, and then stepped away with everything going on in the world. So I wasn't expecting mountains or anything like that. But we've already gone over the backer total and over the pledge total by quite a bit. So I'm really excited about it. Really fun.
Yeah, 62 hours to go. So 332 backers, just under the $9,000 mark. Do you mind if we play your video?
Well, you know, I'm not shy, so yeah, let's do it.
All right, awesome. So let's do it. Let's expand that, and we're going to hit the play button.
Hello and welcome. My name is Terry Mayo. I'm a comic book creator, registered nurse, amateur proctologist, and expert in the paranormal. It is that expertise that brings me here today. In all my travels through the unknown, only one case continues to haunt me to this day. That is the case, Buddy. It is a case so frightening, it's been kept hidden until now. With the help of fellow comic book creators, artist Dave Swartz, and let us in, that the true story of Buddy can finally be told to all of you. Buddy number 1 is a whopping 30 pages, beautifully printed on premium paper. Each physical issue will come bagged, boarded, and signed by writer-creator Terry Mayo. Every backer of the physical tier will receive the rewards in sturdy comic book mailers, with the expectation that Buddy will be ready to arrive at all backers' homes by late August. Buddy follows the misadventures of an utterly unassuming hero named Buddy. Buddy is a simple pug who is content to wake up, pee, eat, chase birds, fall asleep, repeat. That is until a doorway to evil enters his home. Buddy is told from the point of view of the household pets, and in a nutshell, it's like Milo and Otis meets The Exorcist. It's a humorous take on the demonic possession genre, and in its own little way is a story the whole family will enjoy, assuming your family is as twisted as mine. There are several tiers available with variant covers, enamel pins, die-cut stickers, Buddy trading cards, and more. For the very bravest among you, we also have original artwork commissions and original page art from the very first issue of Buddy. We even offer backers the chance to be drawn and featured in future issues of the Buddy saga. So please, help us get the exciting story of Buddy out to the masses by supporting the Kickstarter and telling every soul you know about it. The world might just depend on it. Please support the Kickstarter.
I've never watched that with other people.
That was great. That
I'd
was
step out of
great.
the room. I'm like,
It's so great.
Oh
It
my
is so
goodness,
great.
it's so much fun. And it kind of speaks to, I think the video is kind of important because I think people coming in, all ages books are typically hard to market and sell from what I've seen so far, in promoting things through RAGIN as well as Geek Insider and stuff. But kids love horror.
My boys are gonna love this.
Oh, they love horror. They love, things like Goosebumps and help me out, Nita. Some of the things that the kids read. My kids are old now.
But my kids are young, but they read.
yeah, I mean that was the feel, at least as far, because I remember my age like feeling like I've accomplished something if I was able to check out like scary stories to tell in the dark from my school library.
Yes,
and then
yes.
taking it home and having nightmares for months. And then so I remember my older kids taking home the Goosebumps books and just like freaking themselves out. So I mean, it's not anything that goes away, I don't feel like. And I've always been a big horror movie fan, and just horror in general. So for me, it was about like, what can I make that my kids could enjoy, but that I could also enjoy making. And voila, we have Buddy.
Right now, so before we got here, I was kind of trolling your Facebook account, and there is a pug in your life.
Yeah.
What was it like creating this story? I mean, did you kind of look at the dog and go, there's a story there? I mean, where did Buddy come from?
Well, all of us here, I mean, anybody who's into this kind of stuff, I mean, we've all got our creative juices and our creative mind and whatnot. And so I live in San Diego, and my family is from Texas. So about 4 times a year, we go back and forth and visit, driving. And Buddy, I had a pug named Buddy. Right now I have a pug named Mandy, but I had a pug named Buddy at one point. And before one trip, Buddy was standing at the bottom of the stairs and was like going crazy, barking at the top of the stairs, just like barking, rah, 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 rah. And nothing was there. There was absolutely nothing there. But as I'm driving in the middle of the night, I'm thinking about this fresh in my mind. I'm like, what if he did see something? What if there was a ghost up there? Or there was something? And that's where the kernel of that story began, and it just kind of built and built and built. So yeah, I mean, Buddy, my real life Buddy was just. I think something was wrong with him mentally. There was something wrong there, but you love him anyways, and you know, and that's kind of Buddy is my influence for this Buddy character, and just kind of that unassuming hero, you know, and yeah, so that's where it began.
I love that story because I remember with my own pets, you know, they would sit there and all of a sudden just go like, you know, and be like, what? And just all, you know, like the ghost stories that you can tell and things. Now, so we were kind of scrolling through the campaign, but I do want to go back to some of these variant covers because they are amazing.
Yeah.
You've got the mini prints, you've got variant covers, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yep, variant covers, Stan Yak. That is dark and scary.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah, that one doesn't give an all ages feel to me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And you know, it was a purposeful thing because, I mean, even in my past stuff that I've done, I did a book called The Wicked Righteous, and it's about these four brothers who are trying to escape. It's an post-apocalyptic story set in San Diego, and these four brothers are just trying to escape this evil because a pandemic is hit, and the only people that have survived are children and someone who has ever taken a life. So you got this battle of good versus evil. So I'm big into that whole thing. I mean, I've even got the tattoos, like the angel wings and devil wings on my wrist. It's just that yin and yang. So with the covers, I was like, well, we have this one by Emily, and it's like super cute, and it's
right.
just adorable, right? And Emily's awesome at everything she does with, Vault and beyond. So I was happy to have that one. And then, but I was like, I really want something that's like just a polar opposite of that. And so Stan and Julio came in, and they tore up the cover and gave people nightmares, and it's awesome. I love it. Yeah, it's a great cover.
Yeah.
I like the extremes.
Yeah. And then Mr. Kelly Williams, Mr. Horror Kelly Williams himself, he did a print for us. It reminds me of like an 80s VHS movie box. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? So, and I was like, I love this. So, yeah.
So now when we're talking about Buddy number 1, how far into Buddy number 2 and possibly Buddy number 3 are you?
Dave.
That's a question for the artist.
Oh, put you on the spot.
We have an outline. We have it all mapped out. We have everything going there. So it's nothing to it but to do it. And like I said, Dave and I started this project a good 2 years ago or so, if not more. Memory's not great. But it kind of put on hold. We were with a publisher, but then my health got worse. Pandemic hit, life happened, and I knew I couldn't devote any time to it that I felt like it needed and deserved. So we stopped the project. There was not going to be any funds for it with everything going on. Mm-hmm. Once things started kind of chilling out with the pandemic a little bit, at least in my life, because I'm also a nurse, we came back to it. I reached out to Dave and to Zen, the letterer and editor, and was like, yeah, I would love for you guys to come back and let's finish Buddy. The first issue the first arc is 3 big issues. Well, 3 issues. The first one is 30 pages. And number 2 and number 3 are mapped out. And like I said, it's just a matter of getting it. And that's the purpose for the Kickstarter, is to be able to pay the lovely artist. Mm-hmm. So we can get this stuff out there. And that's the short term. The long term, I think Buddy has a long life to live, but that's completely going to be up to if people want to see that or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of neat to see the character designs and things like that. We were speaking to Daphne Lage not too long ago, and it was, as long as she's been drawing, she was saying it was like the first time that she did her character designs, and by putting, like their height and everything, and she basically had sticky notes on her walls to see how tall they were. Have you done anything like that? Or I guess this is a question for Dave when it comes to character designs and things. What is your process with getting proportions and things like that.
Sure. I think when it comes to the beginning stages, I often lean on the writer to fill me with as much information that's in their head, because ultimately it's their vision that I'm trying to manifest. However, there's my own kind of style and my own approach to it. So I typically I'll ask Terry or whomever I'm working with to just send me as much reference images as you can, describe each character as detailed as you possibly can, and then that helps me to begin. Once I have all that, then I typically try to begin from the most important character down to the least important character, because I want to devote as much time as I can to the main ones and less to the lesser important. So with this one, I obviously started with Buddy and the cat Charlie, and the young boy there, because I knew they were going to be featured in the book the most. So I wanted to kind of not only nail their proportions down, but also, how their proportions relate to the more adult versions, of the characters, because obviously the kid is supposed to be quite young. The pets are supposed to be kind of, pets, right? But I did want to make Buddy, since he's the main character, he's supposed to be a pug dog, but I wanted to make him a little larger than the normal pug dog, just to make his character a little more, visually dominant on the page. So there are small things like that I do adjust in order to make sure, the proper hierarchy is achieved.
Right. Well, and not only, but like the angle, so
Sure.
you almost have to look at it like a photographer, or
Oh yeah.
Just saying, okay, well, if I hold the camera this way, I look much bigger, and everything else kind of falls away. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. Because I don't have the artist brain. So I do kind of want to talk to you guys, or ask you, when you communicate, or when you're looking, Terry, I guess for you, when you're looking for the artist, and I know my own personal journey, I just basically say, I like these colors, have at it, have fun. And I'm going to love pretty much anything that's coming across my table, because I probably don't know any better, but you do, right?
I mean, if you say so, but I mean,
Help me out here. Help me out, Terry.
little known fact, I'm actually colorblind. So a lot of the colors, like the reds, the purples, when they're like right there on the same scene or close together, they really just they blend together for me. It kind of looks just really similar, like the same color almost. So for the colors, I have full trust in the colorist. I have full trust in that. Obviously, if something just looks weirdly out of whack, then it's a conversation, and it's just like, hey. But and as for the art, I mean, I really do try to stay not so much in my lane, because I do have a vision for the book, and I do have like expectations, just like every creator. They want the best. And they want their art, whether it's their writing art, the artist, the colorist, letterer, they want their art to shine. They're doing it for a reason. So I want my, the words that I put out there to shine as well, and the story I'm trying to tell. And at the same time, I'm not an artist, and I do give all the props in the world to the artists. It's a visual medium, and that's what people are tuning in for. Hopefully they stay for the story, but it's the art, in my opinion, that brings them to that destination. And with this art, I mean, with Dave and I, Dave, how early on were we in the process when we decided to switch gears as far as like the tone of the book? Do you remember?
Oh boy. I think, well, we made an 8-page preview for it, shopped it around, and it was quite a while after that before we came back around to it and decided, hey, I think we might need to change the tone a little, because the original artwork that I made, I had a vision for it that was a little darker, a little more desaturated, and I was also working with a more minimal palette, so I was only working within like 4 or 5 colors, so things were all very weird and dark and weird and desaturated than what you see in these preview pages. You know, these preview pages are full color, very saturated. You know, even the character designs themselves became a little more rounded, a little more fun family kind of look versus the original stuff, which is a little more angular. You know, if anyone's familiar with my work, I typically am very angular and kind of detailed. So when I came to this project, I wanted to kind of just simplify it down, brighten it up a little bit, and really bring it back into that family-friendly kind of zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we are past our 30 minutes. And Terry, I'm pretty sure you've got to go because you've got like a baseball team full of kids.
Right. I think
Somewhere
they're
in the background. I'm sure you have to get going. But Dave, if you've got a couple more minutes, I definitely want to ask you about Confederate monsters.
Sure, I can hang around for a little while.
Awesome. So Terry, where can people find you? And for those who are listening, make sure that you head over to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button and check out the show notes because we've got the link to Buddy Number 1 in there. All you have to do is click the link, go support it, and share it out with your friends. Terry, where can people find you?
Anybody who wants to stalk me, they can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and a new horror social media site called Slasher. And all of them, I know,
we gotta
right?
find that.
Slasher. I know, it's fun. You find
Love it.
really cool stuff on there. But you can find me. All of my handles are Mayo TL, so MAYOTL for all 4 of those, and I'll pop up ready or not. And then the link for Buddy, I've been putting it in on all social medias, and yeah, just if you go to Kickstarter, type in Buddy, and he'll pop up, and then you can watch that awesome video again and again and again. Share
it was
friends.
awesome. You know, it's the first time that I saw it, and I saw the Buddy picture go there, and you pointed the wrong way, and I was like, oh, and then you did that, and I was like, I love you. I love you.
Yeah, that's a little sneak peek at my personality, which I guess my wife tells me I'm a lot to get used to. So, I don't know.
Well, Terry, it's been a pleasure. I am not going to boot you. You're going to let yourself out, but we are going to speak with Dave a little bit here. I've got a tiny bump that we're going to do. And Dave, I would love to talk to you about Confederate Monster. We'll be right back after this. Terry, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right, you guys, we are back, and we have Dave Swartz here, artist for Buddy Number 1. And let me see, what is the whole
God of Confederate monsters?
Well, Milo Otis meets the Exorcist. That is right now on Kickstarter, but you've got something on Indiegogo right now in demand.
I do. It's
Tell us
another
a little
horror
about
book.
Ooh, I love horror.
Yes, it
You
is.
are my people.
It is a story called Confederate Monster. It is a book that brings Frankenstein into the world of the Civil War. So in non-traditional fashion, because most Frankenstein stories tend to retell the same story over and over again, I have chosen to add to the original story. So my story takes place 8 years after the original Mary Shelley tale, and we follow Igor, as he is known in my book, because a lot of people say Igor, but I like to call Igor.
Mhm.
But we follow Igor instead of the monster or Victor, because to me, I just felt like that character is very undeveloped. So I wanted to try to just add more to it, see what else we could do with it. So in this story, we catch up with Igor 8 years later, living in Virginia during the end of the Civil War. He's a reconstructive surgeon, kind of repairing wounded soldiers that come back from the battlefield missing limbs. Until one night, the Confederacy discovers who he really is, and that he's tied to this man who once brought back a dead man from death, and they kidnap him and convince him rather gruesomely to reanimate their dead army. So it's got a lot of war elements to it. It's got a lot of historical elements to it, plus a lot of the familiar Frankenstein characters and look and style that you're familiar with.
So now, so are you? I'm gonna guess you're a history buff.
In ways, yeah. I would say I am much more of a buff of consciousness. I am much more interested in the development of the human consciousness, alternate theories of reality, lots of different esoteric subjects. So my previous work, Feast or Famine, that I did with Alterna, was a story about an alternate universe where Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein partner together and basically go on a space adventure. But in that story, I was really trying to tell an alternate version of what our history could have been if men like Nikola Tesla would have just been given all the money in the world, versus essentially dying penniless like he did. So, that was that type of story. This story is much more a story about life and death and just the relationship between the two, as well as the brutality, that kind of finds itself between the subject of life and death, and what kind of monstrous things we can do to one another as humans. So to me, the Civil War was a really great kind of playground to put these characters within. And like I've told a lot of people so far, when writing the story, it really just felt very natural. It wrote itself in ways. The subject matter of the Civil War and Frankenstein, the themes are very similar. So it just, to me, was a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I am definitely going to take a peek at this because I didn't know about it until this evening when we were talking in the pre-show.
Covers.
Oh, yeah.
It
Now, you did say that this is in demand and that you will probably be ending this soon.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure exactly the day that I want to close it down, but it's going to be sooner rather than later. Buddy is coming to a close here in the next couple of days. I told myself I wanted to keep this campaign open through the end of Buddy. But I must say, we just crossed over the 8,000 mark just the other day. So I'm very interested to see if we can maybe, scoop up a couple of extra pledges before I close it out. So we'll see.
I mean, these covers are amazing, and I'm sure that the story is awesome. I just love the concept because, I can't say that I'm a history buff, but I do enjoy history. I love hearing about how difficult it was, and then having the appreciation for the things that we have now, and then coupled with like one of my favorite monsters, which is Frankenstein. So,
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so anybody who's tuning in, I am going to make sure that we add this link to the show notes so that you guys can go and check it out before it goes away, because you need this in your life, especially if you're into horror. I just like the wanted poster here.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
It's a popular one for sure. I believe I've done 6 crowdfunders so far. And this is being my 6th. And, I'm always about trying to step it up a notch. So I wanted to try to bring some perks that people aren't typically used to seeing. And that wanted poster was one of them. I wanted to create something that was not only something unique, but also something handmade. So the wanted poster is going to be paper that's dyed by me. It's hand aged. I'm taking a lighter to the edge of it to kind of burn it inside.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, it's not only just a unique item, but it's an item that I personally put my hand, work into. So
nice.
So now writing, art, lettering too?
Yep. And marketing and, whatever else I can discover.
Wow, dude. Wow.
How long did this project take you?
So I'm about halfway. So I just finished issue 3 a couple weeks ago. I'm working on a 20-page prequel issue, which basically bridges the original Mary Shelley tale to this tale. It tells you how we arrive at where we begin in the beginning of issue 1. So I'm working on that next. I have it all written and laid out. I just got to draw it. But to get where I'm at right now, it has taken about a year and a couple of months. So I'd say about a year and 3 months.
Mhm.
And that's about, I'm going to do some quick math here. It's about 80 some pages, I would say.
Mhm. And so with the prequel and these other stories in this crowdfund for Indiegogo, can everybody get caught up?
So with this, you're basically going to get to about the halfway point
Mhm.
of the first arc. And then my plan is to do another crowdfunder at this time next year for the second half of the book, issues 4, 5, and 6. The way that I work, I love to write a really hefty, meaty first issue and a really hefty, meaty last issue. So my first issue and my last issue are actually double issues. They're close to about 40 pages.
Wow.
But every issue in between is a tight 20. So in that way, it's 6 issues, but it's actually really 8 when you count the number of pages.
Right.
Plus, I'm doing a prequel comic, so you're getting
Yeah.
20 additional pages to the story there too.
Mhm.
But I plan on doing, like I said, another crowdfunder to finish up the book. You're gonna get with that one issues 4, 5, and 6. Plus, I plan on doing a collected edition in softcover and in hardcover. And in the hardcover, I want to do some really cool things. So, when this book comes back around in a year or so, and we're doing, the second half of it, I'm going to be stepping up the rewards notch a bit because I got lots of ideas that I wasn't able to make happen for this one. But, for this one, I've got a 3D printed bust of Dr. Frankenstein from the book.
Wow.
I have a vinyl record. I've got a 4-song soundtrack that we unlocked. And just the other day when we unlocked the $8,000 stretch goal, we added a spaghetti Western style movie poster done at like 25 inches by 38 inches. It's going to be huge.
Wow.
So, I'm super excited to just get all these things made and get them out to backers because, they're just super awesome.
Now, I've got to ask you, Dave, because you are obviously very busy. I see something about like commission art, drawing them into the books and things like that. How are you working that into your schedule? And what is that? So anybody who might want that tier, how does that work? How do they approach you?
Yeah, so it's a great question because I've had a lot of questions about that. So kind of like what Terry's doing with his campaign, where he's got a drawn-in tier for future issues. It's the same thing with mine. So I still have yet to draw issues 4, 5, and 6, and those are the issues where we start to really see a lot of undead soldiers and war scenes and the battles and that kind of thing. So when you pledge to get drawn into the book with this campaign, you're actually going to be drawn into issues 4, 5, and 6. But the nice thing that I've been telling people is I should be able to feature you multiple times.
Mhm.
It's not just going to be a one-off thing.
Oh, that's fun.
So far, I think I've got about 11-ish people. But I'm going to be featuring lots of not only large scenes of soldiers, but lots of close-ups. And those close-ups, I want to try to use backers, right? I mean, if I'm going to have a close-up of somebody's face getting blown off or something, I want that to be a backer. Or if I'm going to show somebody, sticking somebody with a bayonet or something, I want that to be a backer too. So if you pledge to get drawn into the campaign, I want to try to feature you in a prominent place, not just in a little tiny area in the background.
Right. That's amazing. Have you gotten any like weird requests like, hey, Dave, I want to be sliced in half, or, just like weird things like that.
Fun. That's fun, Meredith.
I haven't had much in the way of requests for Confederate Monster just yet. I have had one person who asked about a very specific like uniform that they wanted to wear.
Okay.
So I have had that. However, when it comes to commission requests, I have had some pretty strange ones. You know, the strange stuff that has come my way, the strangest stuff that's come my way is characters drawn in lingerie. So I've had like Godzilla in lingerie or like Winter Soldier in lingerie. Yeah, I do not kid you. I have drawn Thor and Hulk Speedo shopping once. Yeah, that was some fun stuff. But
oh my goodness. Yeah, I'd like to see that actually. Oh my goodness. We are getting towards the top of the hour, Dave, and we're gonna close this down. But
Sure.
It was such a pleasure to talk with
Right.
you. Thank you for talking about Confederate Monster as well as Buddy Number One. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So the best place to find me is on social media. All my handles are Dave Swartz Art, as you see below. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find me at daveswartzart.com as well. I also, in addition to my crowdfunding and comic book creation, I also have a podcast called Higher Consciousness that I host with my fiance. And I also have a weekly YouTube show that I host called Dose of Dave on Saturday afternoon.
Very cool. Make sure that you drop those links into us for our private chat. We'll make sure that we share that out with our friends and fans as well.
Absolutely.
And let's see here. Yeah, I'm just taking notes. Don't mind me. Yeah, because I love that. I love that stuff. And I guess I'm going to have to tune in because I suspect that it probably influences some of the art and the types of stories that you write.
Absolutely. I'm very much into alternate theories of reality and the universe and who we are, you know.
Mhm.
So that very much is influencing not only my writing, you know, but the way that I approach all of my creative endeavors. Because I even talked about my abstract art because I'm an abstract painter too.
Oh my goodness, we've got a couple of minutes. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so it's a recent thing of mine actually. So I've been sort of just trying to find another outlet to do artwork that isn't so rigid. With comic books, you typically have to have a very specific plan. You have to follow through with that plan. Everything has to be very detailed and a lot of, you know, discussions back and forth with the writers. So there's just a lot of things to have to consider. So I was looking for an outlet that just sort of took a lot of that pressure off. And I just found this abstract painting thing. So I've been doing abstract paintings for probably about 2 months now. And my whole philosophy with it is it isn't a thing. There's no thing I'm trying to make. There's no plan. I can even create something that I really love and just destroy it because I want to see what else happens, you know? So the whole idea is to just reinvent my way of looking at art that's not so rigid.
I love that and that must have felt really weird the first time you did it.
Very, very
right
weird.
Because like with the comic books you're going sequential art, there's you're literally in boxes, and then just to go, I'm just throwing paint at this thing. That must have been really weird
And fun.
Absolutely. Well, the thing about it too is, I'm not, I would say I'm not a classically trained abstract thinker. Like I went to school for illustration, so I was taught to think in
rigid
that
lines
way.
and
Like, this is what the client wants, so you have to think in terms of how to deliver that in a quick fashion so that you can get paid without going outside of your budget. So a lot of that type of thinking has been ingrained within me for so long that I needed to step out of that. And stepping out of it, like you said, it was a bit scary at first because I didn't know how to really work with this, right? But the more I worked with it and the more I saw the opportunity with it, to just play, like that's the thing that I think a lot of us lose as we become adults and we get into these, jobs and these very adult hobbies. You kind of forget about this notion of just like playing and seeing what happens and being surprised at what happens. And so, yeah, that's really the major thing that's been surprising me about this is how liberating it is, and how, in a way, it's like it's almost a stretch for my brain, not just like for my hands, right? So yeah.
It kind of, just to pivot just a tiny bit, because I have asked a couple of artists when they are inking, I'm like, do you ever get a hand spasm? And like, what do you do? What do you do? And I think that exercise in abstract art is probably like, oh, I'll just make a little flower here. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's quite literally throw the paint down and in ways allow the paint to tell me where to go next. So when I approach comics or an illustration or something like that, I have a process that I go through where, I know the fundamentals of how to balance an image, how to use the tools of design to make sure that it's visually interesting and stimulating and all those things, right? So that's stuff that I have in my brain that just naturally influences what I do. With this kind of stuff, it's more or less I'm taking that out and I'm putting it down on the canvas, and I allow what happens to dictate what happens next. So, for instance, when I start, I usually just say, purple, pick a color, smash it down, mash it around with a paintbrush for a little while. And then inevitably something happens where I go, you know what? I think pink is the right way to go next. And I try to just follow that flow. It's not a thinking thing where I'm trying to, oh, well, is this too much? Or is this a compliment? Is this going to turn out too? I don't know. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm not trying to think about it. I'm just trying to throw it down and see what I think in the aftermath. You know what I mean? And if I get into it and I say, well, it's too heavy in this area, or this area is just, it doesn't have enough balance. That's what I mean when I talk about it's kind of painting itself, where I look at it and I go, okay, I know what it needs. I just need to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty amazing. And, from visual artist, and if you really hate it, you burn it, and you can call yourself a performance artist, right?
Right. Absolutely. What's funny? So I have planned right now a backyard gallery show later this June in my backyard. And in the whole point of the show in my mind is to make it not only a visually stimulating show, but an interactive experience. So when I was I think it was about 8 years old, it's the first time that my parents had ever taken me to a big boy museum. So I went to the Detroit Institute of Arts and we went to a Van Gogh exhibit, and first time I'd ever been to a museum ever in my life. And very first thing I do, I touch it with my fingers.
Oh no!
And lucky for me,
hard for life.
Lucky for me, there was not anyone around to judge me or to tell me that I shouldn't do that. Of course, my parents rushed over and they were like, "Oh, honey, you don't touch the masterpieces." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But in that way, I thought to myself, I want to make art where people can touch it, because I don't like it being so precious, right? Mm-hmm. So with this show, I'm really trying to make it interactive, where I'm telling people, no, I want you to touch every painting. I want you to touch them. I want you to interact with them. I'm going to make sculptures that are kinetic, where people can kind of just pick up things and move it around and be participatory, mm-hmm. In the experience. So yeah, I always am looking for another way that I can push the envelope a little bit, even in my abstract art, because I'm always doing it in comics. You got to push the envelope in comics. But you know, in this abstract art thing, for sure, I'm just trying to have fun with it. You know.
That's amazing. Well, Dave, we are at the end of our hour here. It has been such a pleasure. Don't go away. We've got a little bit of an outro, but I'm just going to put this card up here. So if you guys are tuning in on the replay, this has been episode 14 of RAGIN with Nita Lanning and myself, Meredith Lochran. We had Terry Mayo and Dave Swartz tonight. Terry Mayo was at the first half, but he's got a passel of kids that he had to take care of. We want to make sure that we are supporting Buddy. Go over there to Kickstarter right now. They've got about 60 hours left of the campaign. Give it some love. Head over to Indiegogo and check out Confederate Monster comic book issues 1 through 3 by Dave Swartz. And Nita.
Go.
Final words.
Throw my dudes.
All right.